having a podcast doesn't mean that you have all the answers. It just means that you're open to have a conversation of learning, of growing, and bringing things to the table, right? So when I listen
And
to a
then at the same
podcast,
time, with what you're saying is, how many dog whisperer moments can you have? How many moments can you have where you're shaken out of your own trap that you've created in your own mind? Because sometimes us hearing different things from different people, right? It'll actually create a shift. We might have heard the same thing from like 4 or 5 different people. We don't listen, but sometimes just hearing it, just maybe a switch of a word from a different person, a different energy, just automatically creates a shift. So how many dog whisper moments can you have, and how many do you need in order to actually make a change in your life?
what was the most recent dog whisper moment, whether it was our conversation or with somebody else or something that you heard? Maybe not like what we heard on other podcasts, but maybe just having a conversation with a friend or a team member that just like that was your most recent dog whisper moment.
Well, my most recent dog whisperer moment is probably a little bit more deeper. So my most recent dog whisperer moment was I was actually reading the Bible. So I made a commitment to read the Bible every day.
Let me ask you why. What brought that commitment on?
So I'll say this: it's been something that's been. It's like an energy. I'll be straight up. It's been like an energy that's been like calling me towards it, and for a long time, long time, I've known that I needed to go this way, and I needed to be more in integrity with the the energy pushing me towards doing it, and just pushing it off, right? Life can be distracting. Life can be very loud, and sometimes we get distracted by the wrong things, right?
Were you raised with the Bible as the book that was either pointed to or read or thought of, or hey, this is where we're at?
Well,
We talked about this yesterday about, you know, I don't like to really use the word religion, but we'll use it because that's what people know it for. But was that something that you were raised
well, it's
in
interesting
home?
because I was actually raised from preschool through high school. I went to a private Catholic school, right? Now, have my beliefs tweaked a little bit since then? They have, but not in a bad way where I don't believe or like I'm an atheist or anything like that. That I don't believe there's a God. No, I believe there's a God, a higher calling. I believe there's a bigger energy, and my recent shift has been from that. So my commitment to reading the Bible is just because it seems like it's an energy that's pulling me towards that I've been neglecting, and it's reached its due time. So every day I'm committed. We're busy, right? We're always busy. But if I could read 2 pages a day for the next 365 days, it ends up being a lot of pages, right? Because even in the morning, I just sit down, have my coffee, I'm reading 2 pages, and whatever I grab from it, I'll grab from it, right? And then I heard this other quote associated to me making the commitment of actually just reading 2 pages of the Bible. So let me read this quote to you because I actually heard it on another podcast, all right? So this quote goes like this: The devil can never take what God has installed in you, but he can blind you from where it takes you. Okay? So we ask ourselves sometimes, what is our purpose? But we might not be asking the correct question. What is our God-given purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we believe that every day that we wake up, our purpose is just to make money, is to buy a house, is to buy a nice car, is to buy a nice watch. But when the noise settles and you're in your peace and you get a time to take a deep breath, think, then that's when you start pulling in a different direction. You start asking for the bigger questions. What is not only my purpose, what is my God-given purpose?
Well, there's a quote I heard somebody once say: when you don't know your purpose, somebody will tell you.
Right.
So if you don't know what your God-given purpose is, then you're going to be led to whatever somebody else tells you that purpose is.
Right.
And there's sometimes where we've heard that where the ladder of success, if you don't realize what ladder you're on, you might end up at the wrong window 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now because somebody told you what your purpose was, or, hey, I see this in you. And you're like, oh, okay. I don't know what to do. I don't know why I'm here. So let me go ahead and go on this journey. And maybe that journey takes you to the wrong window.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you realize that that window is not your God given window. But guess what?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Then you have to climb down because there's no ladder that goes from window to window. You got to climb down that old ladder or move it to go up the next ladder. And sometimes we can, I don't like to use the word waste, but we could spend a lot of time on the wrong ladder when going back to that God given purpose, understanding, knowing, identifying, confirming, and then going on that road to success.
Right. And then I think the biggest thing with today, and I think we're all guilty of it, is being allowed to be convinced or primed, we'll call it priming, by everything around us of what we should be doing, right?
How did you dress in high school?
How did I dress in high
Because
school?
that was like the same era that we were in high school. So how did you dress?
Oh, bro, like then during high school, there was like a different era. It was like the rebel days, right? So, you know, you
90s.
in the 90s, you know, the
Backyard house parties.
the hard house days, you know,
Party cruise.
and stuff like that. So those are very, you know, we were, you know, until you actually see what's happening from later on, 20 years later, you're being primed by everything, all your surroundings around you. So the decisions that you're making, are they really your decisions?
Mm-hmm.
No, 100% they are no longer your decisions.
Influenced by your surroundings.
All your decisions that you make are being influenced by your surroundings. All of them, everything, right? So that I call that the noise.
Did your clothing change from elementary to junior high, and then did it change from junior high into high school? Because obviously there's different crowds. I remember being in junior high. That was the time of where I was dressing. I don't want to use the word gangster, but that was like how I grew up, right? Where there was Levi's, creased. There was a school I went to, one out of the many junior highs, where it was uniforms, but I would still wear like the blue Ben Davis or the khaki type style. Yeah. And then when I got into high school, then it was like the party crew days, but even like the gang culture had an influence even in the party crews, because there was a lot of people who maybe didn't want to join a gang, but still had that influence, whether it was cousins or uncles or, you know, the neighborhood that they grew up in, didn't want the gang, but still wanted to be a part of something. And it wasn't violence, but maybe it was guys or girls or money. Right. Like for me, you know, I grew up with family and friends from that culture, but not wanting to be a part of that, but still it being a part of me, by default, started a party crew, started a backyard party crew. And it wasn't for violence. It was for freedom. It was for finances. Could I go get a regular job, which I did at McDonald's and the meat market, you know, that traditional thing. But I knew that there was something more to life on how to generate income without working a regular 9 to 5. So going into junior high to high school, party cruise that was it. You know, growing up in San Gabriel Valley, LA County had their party cruise, Inland Empire had their party cruise, Orange County. I remember my brother used to live in Tulare County, which is up north, and I went to go visit him, and they started to have their party cruise scene. We had go-go boxes; they had like haystacks, you know, from like from the cows. But in high school, that culture influenced how we dressed, how we talked. The music influenced also how we dressed, how we did our parties. But that really generated a opportunity to have freedom, to make money. You know, the girls were there, obviously. You know, you threw parties. If you were a guy crew, you threw parties because, one, maybe you wanted to make money, or two, is because you wanted to get people there together.
Right. So let's talk about everything that you just said right now. You're talking about party crews. You're talking about other people's influence. You're really talking about a lot of distractions. Mm-hmm. To me, I hear a lot of distractions.
Influences.
Right. And to be honest with you, let's be honest here. It's a lot of bad influences. Because if you weren't being distracted by all this noise, what's something else that you could have done, and what would have your outcome been as a person if you would have never been involved in that type of scene? Not saying that is wrong, because we all have our youth and we all go through our youth, but even we could correlate to stuff today, right? From the party crews from back in the days to today. You have your own party crew from today. What do you want to call it? Your coworkers, social media. You could call it your close friends, family,
Workout buddies.
That's your party crew.
Yeah.
Because that's your party crew. They're automatically influencing you, even sometimes how you behave, what you can say, what you can't say, right? So, I think sometimes we forget that we need to seek freedom to be ourselves and take the time to find our true meaning, right? So I continue to go back to that, because in reading the Bible, you find, I'm not trying to impose any religion on anything. At the end of the day, it's all one God, right? The Bibles are all very similar, right? So whatever you believe, I respect. Whatever you don't believe, it is what it is. It's fine. Your beliefs have nothing to do with mine. My beliefs have nothing to do with yours. I respect everybody's opinion on everything. Just want to put that out there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point in my life, I'm 43 years old, going to be 44. So, different things have come across life where you start asking different questions, right? I don't know if you got to that point in your life, but I certainly have, where things have become a little bit more quiet, in the sense where I could have my freedom to sit down and think of what my purpose is. And I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons that I'm actually here with you today doing this podcast, Better Version of Me, is because, to an extent, I think here is where we could find some type of purpose of how we could be a better service, not just to ourselves, because to ourselves is being selfish, but, servicing, being in the conversation of being at service to others, of how we can help. And if we can be in this conversation and somebody could find some type of help, some type of dog whisperer moment, some Cesar Millan moment, where it could shift you into the right direction, then one person having change will make the biggest difference, even if we don't get to see it.
So right there, you mentioned about having that person to bring change, right? I just read Matthew this morning. I'm going through the book of Matthew, and I read Matthew chapter 15, and there was a part where Jesus was talking about the blind leading the blind. In our days of the 90s, there was no social media. There was barely internet. I remember I used to get the Earthlink CDs that you would put in. You had DSL. You'd get onto like Yahoo chat room, and it would be like to get onto the internet. Nowadays, with social media, everybody's an influencer. Our influence was MTV, BET, movies, shows, right? In the 90s, there was a lot of certain movies that were coming out. But here you have this 8th grader going into 9th grade, into a whole new world where that was a culture and that was an influence. Now, there was people who chose not to be part of that, where you had like the jocks, quote unquote, those who were just focused on sports. Then you had those who were focused on parties, right? Then you had like the stoners, those who were just like in their own little world. Then you had like the goody two-shoes who were just focused just on school. Even if you invite them to parties, they would not go. They're just focused on school. They'd go to school, they do homework, they go home, and so on and so forth. And then you had those who were not knowing where they fit in. So they tried a little bit of everything. And then they realized maybe this is where I belong. But that was all part of who we were surrounding ourselves with. Nowadays, we have social media influencers that you can be influenced by somebody on the other side of the world, never meeting them, that can help you either distract you, put you on the right path, put you on the wrong path, but there's more voices that could be more positive. I didn't have a lot of positive voices during that time. I just had my surroundings, and I said, okay, how do I make the best of it? And I played sports my freshman year, football, but I got kicked off the team. One, because when it was Hal Week, I finished Hal Week, And then we all got white shirts, and we're all supposed to put our last names on the shirt. So everybody wrote with the marker their last name. Well, I came in and I wrote these big old block letters tagged on my shirt with my last name. And they said, Hernandez, what in the world? Because back then, the coaches were able to tell you how they felt and leaned in you, and nobody felt like, oh my gosh, So with that, I got kicked off the team. So I said, okay, I'm not going to play sports, but there's a lot of people on the team that would go to after game parties. So I said, okay, how do I capitalize on this where I can make money off of people going to these parties? I can either pay $5 to get in somebody's backyard, or I can be the one sourcing it and making the money off of people paying $5 to get in somebody's backyard. And with that, I chose to do the opposite of actually making money from there. And that, I don't regret it. I don't regret it because that made me who I am today. I learned a lot of entrepreneur skills throwing parties, influencing people, building teams, going out there and marketing, talking to people, getting out of my comfort zone, going to other cities that I hadn't been before, and going to backyard parties around people I've never even met, and going in there and passing out flyers. Like, talk about getting out of your comfort zone. Go to a neighborhood that you normally would have never went to, around people that you have no idea who they are, why they're there, and pass out a flyer in a neighborhood and then invite them to your party in the 1 or 2 weeks from there.
So what do you think from what you're describing now? What do you think are the top 3 things that you grabbed from doing this type of business, we'll just say, that you are utilizing today?
That's a great question. So one of them is people skills, right? Being able to generate a conversation from nothing. And then be intentional, not just, hey, how's your day? How's the weather? But you have a certain goal of that conversation, and then going into a crowd and doing that. 2, learning communication skills. So not just people skills, reading people, because again, these were the 90s. There was a lot of violence and trouble that took place sometimes at these parties. So not just being caught up in where you're at, but who you're around. So learning this person's acting this way, the music is changing, the people are gathering a certain way. Maybe there's a fight that's going to take place. Maybe this is going to take place. So learning how to read the room, right? Communication skills. And then even more importantly, marketing. I learned a lot how to market, right, how to create my flyers, right? I would literally get a flyer. I would put it on a piece of paper, outline it, and say, okay, what's the name that I'm going to call this party? Whatever that name was. Spring Love, right? So then I would draw Spring Love, a character. Okay, who we're going to put featuring? Who's going to be the DJ? Where's the location going to be at? Who are my allies that I want to invite? So I'm creating all this, taking it to a printing place, having them design it, and then making it real where I go out there and I pass those out.
So it allowed you to have the opportunity to be in an energy of being creative.
That was an outlet, Designing was an outlet. Marketing was an outlet. Going to parties, not for the sake of partying, because let me set the record straight. I've never drank, I've never smoked, and I've never done drugs. For different reasons, I chose not to do that because I was more involved and focused on making money. If I was drinking or doing drugs, I wouldn't have been in my right mind to be able to, one, make the money, hold on to the money, and then spend it correctly. If I was on drugs, I could have easily gave somebody change incorrectly. I could have lost it. I could have spent it on drugs. To me, I didn't want to be influenced by anybody. I wanted to be in control of my surroundings, my destiny, and generate the money and keep the money that I made to buy whatever it is I want to buy with them, right? So never smoked, never drank, never did drugs, but throwing parties was an outlet. I come from a broken home. I didn't want to be home. It was dirty. It was ghetto. When I say ghetto, like not just ghetto hood, like ghetto dirty. Like if there was people that went in there and saw that, they would have easily took all the kids out of the house because there was roaches, rats, ants, no food ever in the refrigerator, no dishes ever in the cupboards. Sink was filthy. I mean, it was like looking back at it, I can laugh at it now, but dang, that wasn't good. So I did anything that I could to not be there. Uh, there was no security. There was nothing there. I just wanted to be out. But I didn't want to be out just wandering and looking for things to get into trouble. If I wasn't going to be there and I couldn't ask anybody for money, well, I had to go make my own money. If I wanted a certain pair of shoes, I couldn't ask because we were on food stamps. We were barely making it. $5 to go get a burrito was like, oh my gosh, $5, right? So I said, okay, I need to make my own money.
Let me ask you this question. So through all our struggles, we create conversations, right? So what do you think from your experiences as a young man growing up, struggling in these surroundings, difficult or challenging surroundings, what is one of the stories that you created today that you don't want to see for yourself or for your family or for your kids?
For them not to struggle financially, to have a clean home, have a place where they want to be at versus them looking for something outside of the home that they're not getting inside the home. And I'm not talking about love because my dad loved me, even though he wasn't in the home for a good period of time. My mom loved me, but he only did what they thought was right or wrong because they were also caught up in, drugs and the party, the gang life, all that other stuff. So they were under influences.
Right.
So they were limited on how they were able to parent. So therefore it left me and all my surroundings and other youth and friends. Some of them were getting into gangs. Some were committing murders and going to prison for the rest of their lives. And I had to decide, do I want to go this route or do I want to go that route? Well, I picked a middle route, and that's where the outlet of house parties and creating money and going places and being around other people who also didn't want to be home. I think that's what fueled that culture, that there was a lot of youth who didn't want to be home for whatever issues that were taking place and going out there and creating their own reality.
Let me ask you this. So every day we wake up, we all need our reasons why we go do our day-to-day activities. And I'll be honest with you, I like to call it, let's go to war, right? We go to war every day to fight for what we want for ourselves, what we want for our family, what we want for our people around us. What's your reason why you go to war every day? Is that the reason why, or do you have a different reason of why you get up every day, 7 days a week? Because we're business owners, right? So there's no such thing as opening and closing. It's always open, right? So what's your reason of why you get up every day and why do you go to war?
Freedom and opportunity. Freedom of my time, because we don't live forever. We're not talking about like eternal life after I'm a Christian. I believe in that. But I'm talking about in this body, our time is limited. And we talked about this, I think, on our first episode where, I don't want to be 60 or 70 years old and working at Walmart saying, thank you for coming into Walmart, right? So something is on aisle 17. I want to be able to have the freedom, financial freedom, not to have a lot of money, but to do what I want to do with the time that I have left here on earth without having to worry about how am I going to pay this, right? Or if somebody comes and says, hey, we're going to go on this trip or we're going to go here, I'd rather not go because that's not a place I want to go versus that is a place I want to go. I just don't have the means to do it, right? So having the freedom of time and financial opportunities bring that. Second is opportunity for my kids, to give them opportunities that, one, I didn't have, and two, having the time to spend with them rather than me being at work all day and night, my spouse being at work all day and night, and then leaving them by themselves to figure what we call life out, right? I wanted to be able to spend quality time with them, be with them. I just read a quote this morning where it talked about raise your kids, don't just grow them. Raising them with intentions, spending that quality time with them. We have certain activities that we have at the house, arcades and pool table and darts and video games, and we play board games. Like, these are intentional things that we do with our kids so that it can not only just be a fun house, but a house of safety.
So it sounds like, based on the way you were raised in your childhood, you've already erased that for your children, because you're telling me that you came from a place where there was no clean dishes, roaches, and in a bad environment. And your kids are being raised in a completely different environment. So it sounds like your conversation has already been implemented into today, into your kids today.
Yeah.
So
Broke that cycle.
you broke that cycle. So your reason why you get up every day is obviously part of that, giving yourself the freedom and giving your kids the freedom to have a different lifestyle and a different outcome. Not to say that your outcome is great. You're a business owner. We're doing this podcast. We have the freedom to be doing this podcast
During working hours, quote unquote.
What time is it right now?
I think maybe 11:30 a.m.
What time is it right now? 11:30. It's 11:30. And what day is it?
Wednesday,
On a random Wednesday, right?
midweek.
So if this isn't freedom, then I don't know what is, right? So if you were to ask me the same question, it's the same thing for me. The reason I go to war every day is for one thing, and it's for my freedom. My freedom to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, and go wherever I want, and buy whatever I want. I don't want to be under anybody's restraint, clock in, clock out. I don't want none of that.
And that's one of the reasons why people start businesses, right? One of the reasons is that, but now, and I heard this again this morning on a podcast when I was getting ready. Business owners have to understand and realize, because you're a business owner, that doesn't mean that you don't have a quote unquote boss.
Right.
Your customer is your boss. Now, the more customers you have, then the less they have leverage on you. So I was hearing, I think it was Grant Cardone being interviewed, and he said, if you're a business owner and you have 1 to 3 employees and a handful of customers, then those customers and those employees are going to push you around because you need them in order to be in business.
Mm-hmm.
But the more employees you have, the more customers that you have, the more freedom you're going to have, because then you start to raise up people and you have managers. Your managers have those problems, but you're no longer that manager. You're the overseer.
Right.
So we have to work ourselves as business owners out of that position, give people opportunities to be in that position, and then oversee it. That's true freedom. People start a business and say, I want to be free, and they're actually working more hours than they would have on a 9 to 5. Sometimes the money that they're making doesn't even amount to more than what they would make at a 9 to 5.
Right.
Because they're working, like you said, it never stops, 24/7.
24/7, 7 days a week.
And they are more stressed. They maybe have more health issues. They're not taking care of their health because they're always out and about making it happen. That's part of a business owner. There has to be a time at the beginning where you're grinding, you're hustling, you're out there. Just because you start a business doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And it shouldn't be easy. This is where you're learning how to go to war and how to take that hill. It's going to be a climb. It's going to be a struggle. There's going to be times where you want to throw in the towel and give up and say, this is not for me. Maybe I can just go get a regular 9 to 5. But there was a reason why you chose not to do that in the first place. You wanted to escape that for that freedom, but that freedom is not free. That freedom is not cheap. It costs money. It costs time. It costs effort. There is some sacrifice from your family, from your friends. There's going to be times where you have to say no because you want to focus on the long-term goal to have this business so successful that it's going to provide a life that I want to provide for myself, my family, and give me the freedom that if I want to do a podcast on a Wednesday, midweek, 11:30 a.m., I choose to do that without having to be at an office and ask for the day off to come here and talk about what we're talking about.
So there's a big difference. You have to be able to separate one from the other. One, and it's very important because conversation is extremely important. Have to versus choose to.
And get to.
Right? Mm-hmm. Or get to. Choose to. Either way, it's the same thing, right? So today, we don't have to do this podcast. We choose to do the podcast.
Why did you choose to do this podcast?
I chose to do the podcast because of one, I think it could help others. Like I said, having those moments or those small significance of words that could possibly change the trajectory of somebody's life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's why I'm here, is to see to make a difference, even if it's just in one person's life. I'm gonna tell you a little story that actually just happened maybe like 30 to 45 days ago. One of my buddy's house, we're gonna go see a UFC fight. Okay. And then a few years ago, and like in 2018, I had a gym. I had a bunch of clients. I was working from 5:30 in the morning until like 9:30 at night. I would close up. The gym would shut down at 9 o'clock at night, and then I would clean up for the last 30 minutes. I would get home. I would wake up the next day at 4:30. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that I saw some of my old athletes. Okay. So when I originally left the gym and I closed the gym down, I closed it down because it didn't seem like I was making a significance anymore in people's lives. Like, a lot of people would come in for 3 months, they would do great, or they wanted to do they had a wedding coming up. And then after like 90 days, they would look fantastic, best shape in their life. Their doctors would give them kudos. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Cool. Summer would come along. Their body would be destroyed within 30 days because they worked for it so hard that they felt like they needed to let go of the gas. Not point of the story. So I saw these two friends, athletes,
Previous clients of yours?
previous clients of mine. This is like years later. I hadn't seen them for a couple of years, right? When they walked into the door, they were not only in fantastic shape, they looked healthy, they looked vibrant, and they were still exercising and still doing the, close to the nutrition plan that I had set up for them. And I told them, you guys just made my day, because I know now that I made a difference in somebody's life, because they looked happy, healthy, and successful. I was in shock because I thought everybody had dropped off. I thought whatever I had done, the hours I had sacrificed to try to change people's lives in a good way was all gone. But the fact that I saw them just like 45, maybe 60 days ago, that was like the stamp of, hey, I actually did something good for somebody, right? You got to change somebody's life. Let me ask you this question, and this is kind of like a curveball question, and just follow me with it. Batman or Joker, and why?
What do you mean?
Batman or Joker, and why?
Specify the question.
So do you like
What are
the
you
character Batman, or do you like the character the Joker?
Which one do I like more?
More, and why?
So that's a good question.
Mm.
I would pick, and it depends on what day you ask me too. But as of right now, where I'm at, I would say Batman. Okay. And don't get me wrong, I love the Joker. I think Heath Ledger did an amazing job on the Dark Knight. My son and I, we have different conversations on who played the best Batman. I still say, what's his name? Christian Bale, best Batman. Now, I grew up on Michael Keaton.
Right.
I remember going to the drive-in and seeing that. But why I pick Batman is a couple of reasons. One, what he was doing wasn't to be famous. It wasn't to have recognition. It was a response to what was going on around him, that he can help the area, the community, the people that his dad served for the greater good. Even though he sacrificed his time because he wasn't married, didn't have kids, it was about me serving and protecting and helping and being a light, right? A literal light, with Commissioner Gordon would put that light up to the community, that there was hope, that you didn't have to be your surroundings, that even though it was Gotham was where it was at, he was the light to prevent and help others to choose something that they didn't even know even existed. Resistance.
Give me 3 attributes that you like best about the character of Batman, to simplify things.
I would say 1, his double life.
Okay.
2, his sacrificial lifestyle.
Okay.
And 3, his opportunity of partnering with others who have the same mindset of working together for the greater good, right? Batwoman, Robin, create. So, and then I'll ask you the same question too. But a great leader, because Batman was a leader, obviously, but a great leader has 3 people in his life or her life. 1 is a mentor, a coach, somebody that is keeping them accountable, that's pulling them up or helping them see areas that they don't see, right? 2, a peer, somebody that, we talk about iron sharpens iron, somebody that's on their level that is helping them, they're having constant communication. The 3rd is somebody that they're mentoring or discipling or bringing up. So if I'm going to climb a mountain, I don't want to climb it by myself. 1, I want to be able to have somebody that's coaching me to get up there, another person that's on my side, by my side, together, and then somebody below me that I'm helping pull up, right? So those are 3 things or 3 people that we should have in our life, and Batman had all of those.
Right.
Joker or Batman?
But well, wait. What do you think is the number one thing that the Batman gave up?
What was the number one thing that Batman gave up? I would say Batman gave up a lot of things, but I think the main thing that he gave up was his societal identity for his true purpose of why he existed.
So I'll put in one word. I think he gave up his freedom.
You think so? Why?
Because he was living under still rules, a lot of rules of what he can and cannot do, and still living under to an extent, the rules of Gotham, right? Because he couldn't go out of pocket. He couldn't.
What do you mean?
Meaning, what I mean is he still lived under the same laws that man lives. He was helping people, but he gave up his freedom for others.
Before his dad and his mom passed away, do you feel that he was under certain rules, even though his parents were financially rich and secure and created? And
Yes, of course. He was still under rules.
which rules?
The rules of his parents, whatever they wanted him to do, go to school. It's a rule. Go to school. Brush your teeth, brush your hair, whatever. It's a rule. You got to go do this. You got to go do that. You got to behave this way. Sit right, because it seemed like they came, with the silver spoon and born with a silver spoon. You have to behave a certain way, act a certain way, right? I'm pretty sure he was, somebody in that level of income or finances would be raised to those standards.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, not everybody, right?
Good or bad thing?
It could be a good thing, but there's still rules, right? Structure. We call it structure. But becoming the Batman, I think he gave up his freedom for others. He sacrificed himself for the greater good. But he did give up his freedom because at night, if he wanted to have, let's just say, a beer, couldn't have a beer. He needed to put his bat suit on and go defend Gotham, right? So to an extent, you have to give up something for something else. He did give up his freedom. Now, if you're going to ask me the same question, Batman or Joker, I'm going to tell you the Joker, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
In the last movie, The Joker, the very last one, he wasn't free in the beginning of the movie.
Which one? What movie are you talking
The
about?
very last Joker. There's on the very, very last
With Joaquin
one.
Phoenix?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The movie The
The
Joker.
movie called Joker.
Okay.
Right? He wasn't free in the beginning of the movie. So what restrained his freedom? What do you think? What do you think restrained his freedom?
Well, his choices of, because remember, he was a clown, right? He'd go to parties and things like that. There's a lot of layers to that Joker, which Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job. We were just talking about that the other day. But him wanting to make people laugh, choosing an outlet of kids versus him really seeing what was inside him, who he really was as a person. I think society told him what a person should be, wanting to make somebody, quote unquote, laugh or smile. I think in reality, he made everybody else laugh without making himself be happy. And in a demonic way, it wasn't until he started to hurt other people is when he started to realize that that made him happy because he can do whatever he wanted to do. He wasn't being told by anyone, and him breaking all the rules brought him into the spotlight that he always wanted. We saw when he went onto that show, and when people were laughing at him, he wanted people to laugh with him, not at him.
Right.
But because people weren't laughing with him, he chose for people to laugh at him. That triggered something inside him to now say, you know what? I'd rather people be afraid of me versus laughing at me.
And don't get me wrong, the Batman character brings a lot of good characteristics as far as if you're going to be in business, right? So let's talk about what the good things that it does bring. Structure. Your son was talking about that, right?
Yeah.
It brings in structure.
How good is structure?
It brings in an elite human.
Do you have structure in your businesses?
We have structure. And business can only exist under structure. Chaos needs to be minimized.
Okay. And then why is structure so important in a business, and how do you create structure?
Structure is created with consistency. Structure is created by implementing, I call it the safety, the goalie and the net, right? So structures you create a structure by putting things into place. If anything falls out of pocket, there's something to stop it from going any farther, right? So I'll give you an example. If you have more than one set of eyes on something, the chances of it falling through the cracks and getting any bigger become slimmer by every person that you have looking at a situation. If you only have one person looking at something, it could fall through the cracks because you're only one person. But if you have 2 to 3 people, the chances of this becoming any bigger are slim to none, right? It could happen, but now whatever structure you've created, you have 3 people supporting the structure to make sure that it stays intact. So if I don't catch it, you might catch it. If you don't catch it, he might catch it, but somebody's going to catch it. So consistency and having a support team to be able to mitigate your whatever you implemented with your structure.
How would a football team look? You watch football?
Yeah, not much, but
You
Super Bowl.
Okay, so how would a football team look if everybody was quarterback?
Oh no, too many. You got the too many Chiefs, no Indians situation.
So with a business, everybody has a role to play, right? The person who hikes the ball, the center, is just as important as a quarterback, as a running back, as a fullback, as a lineman. Now, who gets the glory of that play? Probably the quarterback and maybe the receiver who caught it or the running back who did that. But it was the blockers who created that opportunity for that person to have enough time to be able to throw the ball. So everything works together as a team. Again, there's sports where it's just a one person, like tennis. You can play tennis one versus the other person. I like team sports. Just like, I play pool and darts and ping pong. Those are single person sports, but I like to create businesses or run businesses in a team effort where everybody sees things like you're mentioning, those different pair of eyes, and let's take the island together versus one person. Can I do it? Yes, I believe in myself. Is it going to take me a lot longer to get it done by myself? Yeah. I'd rather take 5 islands with a team of 5 versus just me taking one island that takes a whole life. Because we can create more opportunities having 5 islands than me spending the rest of my life trying to just take one.
And then your capacity for growth is based on your team. You could only get as big as your team is mentally strong in order to grow. Because I've actually been through that. So in 2020, I had I think I had like a total of 40 employees or something like that. And we had reached our capacity. Be honest. we had reached our capacity with the management that we had on the ground and the management that we had in the office. We had reached our capacity. We couldn't go past the 40 unless certain people were replaced in order to be able to push through the 40. So, yeah, your team is 100% extremely important for your growth.
Here's a question. Would you rather be the only person that runs and owns a business and you make $1,000 every month? Would you rather have a partner and you guys together make $2,500 total? Or would you rather have 3 other partners, so 4 of you, making a total of $8,000 as a team?
Well, that's a very interesting question because sometimes too many hands in the pot can be a bad thing because you have too many opinions. And sometimes too many opinions will slow down progress unless you guys both are, unless everybody is on the same page. But today, where I'm at in business and in life, where I choose freedom, I will say that I'm more open to having one partner in a business versus having 3 to 4 people that I need to pass anything through in order to do anything. Because having one partner already, everything is like, in order to be open, in order to be honest, in order to be in integrity, 100% open communication is crucial in order to be able to create that bond and that trust with your partner. Having a partner in business is like pretty much getting married to somebody because now you're in bed with them. Like regardless, if I do A, it's going to affect, if whatever I do is going to affect my partner. Whatever my partner does is going to affect me. Whether it's personal or business, it's going to affect it. So if my partner declares bankruptcy, well, it could even affect me. If I declare bankruptcy, it's going to affect my partner because we're both officers in a corporation. So, but I'd rather just do one partner than to have 3 or 4 or 5 and make more money.
So, using the table analogy, the only way I would consider having more than one partner is if the table is big enough. Using apartment complexes, if I can buy a single family home, a duplex, a triplex, or even a fourplex, one person. If I'm going to do 4 plus, maybe 4 through 8 units, maybe a partner. If I'm going to do 9 to 13 units, possibly maybe 3 partners or 2 other partners, 3 people. But if I'm going to buy a 32-unit apartment complex, yes, maybe you can do it by yourself or maybe with 1 partner, 2 partner. But if 4 people total, including myself, can do it, then it might be quicker to get from that 32 units to buy another 32 unit. So I think it depends on how big the pie is, not financially, but the opportunity of how that would dictate the partnership or how many is needed. Because again, we're talking about freedom here. The bigger the pie, the more responsibility. And when I get into a business, it's not to become an employee of that business. It's looking
Owner
at
versus
it,
operator.
right? Now, maybe at the beginning, you're in it, but the goal is not to stay in it. The goal is to own the business, run the business, not be in the business.
But the biggest thing is having multiple partners is to make sure that everybody has the same vision of the future or what you guys want to do with the building or any type of investment. It doesn't matter if it's an apartment complex. It could be selling paletas. It doesn't matter.
Clarity and communication.
Communication. If the same vision is not lined up, don't even bother moving forward.
Yeah. Because what if somebody has the mindset of, hey, I want to sell this in less than 5 years. And another person's like, no, I want to keep this and pass this on to my kids. When you have a partnership, it's important to, 1, know the roles of that partner. 2, if you have 2 people that are identical and bring the same things to the table, it's important to have a partner or partners that bring other things to the table that maybe you can do, but just choose not to do. So that it becomes a whole ship rather than just a partnership. If you have two people that are doing the exact same, let's just say you have a business and both people are doing sales, but nobody's handling the structure or the back end or the system or the employees, then you have a gap, you have a blind spot because two people are out here on the field, but nobody's there running the shop. So you want to have somebody that is running the shop and another person that's handling the outside sales, for example. As that business grows, then there's other parts to it, maybe the finance part of it or other things that maybe you can delegate or bring somebody on to handle that part. But you have to understand where the value that you bring to the table, what your strengths are, and what areas that either you don't want to do, don't want to grow in, or don't want to be. If you can go back and talk to the younger Mike, what are two things that you would tell young Mike?
Right now. Stop everything that you're doing. Everything.
Before, we're talking about young Mike, I don't want to say unsuccessful, but not successful yet, Mike. You would tell him to stop what you're doing?
I would say stop because there was a lot of noise. And there was a lot of distractions. And there was a lot of things that I thought that I should be doing with my life because I didn't have a vision of what I wanted in my life yet. So it's kind of like saying money with no purpose goes everywhere and nowhere, right? So life with no purpose goes everywhere and nowhere. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, it was kind of like I'm only paddling on one side. Yeah, I'm making ripples in my life, but I'm only going in circles and I'm not going very far. So once again, there's a lot of movement, but not a lot of movement in the right direction because there's so many distractions, right? And look, I mean, it is what it is. We go through our learning periods. We're growing up, hormones are in there, testosterone's pumping at 1,000 miles per hour, right? We're doing X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. And it could be very distracting. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you one thing, and I'm going to say it. Women are very distracting. Women are extremely distracting, especially the wrong woman in your life. Mm-hmm. Can be very distracting in many ways, right? So if you're making X amount of dollars, and if you have a female in your life,
or male if you're female,
so or male if you're female, either way, or whatever preference you have, whatever, right? A partner, we'll just call it a partner, right? A partner, the wrong partner, mm-hmm. can be very distracting, especially if they're not there to. If they don't have the same vision of you want in life. Well, even me, I didn't really have like I said, I didn't find my purpose yet that I wanted to do or head into the right direction. So I was just, making a lot of ripples with not going anywhere. So I would say if I was to talk to the old Mike, you need to slow down.
Okay, so one, slow down.
Slow down.
And what about the second thing?
I would say making better decisions. For sure.
You would tell him to make better decisions? What does that mean, better decisions?
So slow down would automatically implement better clarity in order to be able to make better decisions to better my life in a faster pace, right? Because like I said, you could do a lot of ripples and be going around the same circles, be going nowhere, mm-hmm. right? Don't get me wrong. I've always been a hard worker, had 2-3 jobs, freaking going to school, blah, 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 all that good stuff, right? But once again, still having a lot of distractions about things that I thought that I should have been doing versus the things that I should have been doing.
Mm-hmm. So slow down to make better decisions.
Make better decisions. You have to be, as a young man, you have to be careful with a young man or a young woman being very careful with the partner that you choose. Mm-hmm. Because that partner could be very distracting. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say I tell my partner, hey, partner, there's a real estate conference coming up. We should go. I think it would be good for both of us. And this is not my good partner, right? This is the Joker partner, not the Batman partner.
Not the right
structure,
one.
Not the right partner. My partner says, dude, there's a Coachella event this weekend. Let's go to Coachella. Now, we have two different outcomes here. One, I take my partner to a real estate conference. We intake knowledge. We're like, wow, that was amazing. What are we going to do with all this knowledge? Because knowledge without execution is delusion, right? So we intake this knowledge and we start saving for our first investment property. I don't need to say anything else. Eventually you buy your investment property, blah, blah, blah. Let's see where it can lead. Or I go to Coachella. Let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to spend money in a room, alcohol, whatever, food over there, spend 3 to 4 days out there. Is just, yeah, you know, you're going to get an experience, you know, you're going to gain an experience, but is it going to be the right experience? Mm-hmm. What kind of ripples are you creating? Are you creating ripples for your life in the right direction? Or are you going to be able to better yourself quicker? Or are you just going for the experience? And what are you going to gain from it? Nothing. So that's a perfect example right there, having the right partner or having the wrong partner in your life. That's going to support you in the things that should be done or antagonize you to go in the opposite way. So that's why I say having a partner in your life or friends, it doesn't even have to be a partner, or friends that are not in the same conversation. Or let's just say your friends, because I've actually been through this, right? Let's just say your friends are in the conversation of being in victimhood, where they're constantly blaming others, or it's not my fault, it is what it is, things are like this because they are, taking no responsibility. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're constantly in that conversation with other people, you're being primed, whether you realize it or not. You're being sold an idea that victimhood is good, and eventually you'll fall into the trap. So being cautious of who is around you, your partner, your friends, your family, even your family, can make the biggest impact.
You know, even before I ask or I answer that same question for myself, what would I tell the younger Daniel? You know, as you're talking, I'm taking notes, and one, when we get into a relationship, whether it's a physical relationship or a financial relationship or a partner relationship, whatever the case may be, you know, at our church, a lot of times if you're going to get married, you get engaged, you go to talk to the pastor or a leader or a licensed minister, you're going over and you're talking what they call premarital counseling. So what's the purpose of premarital counseling? One, you have somebody that's not involved in the relationship that are going to ask some questions to have a better understanding of where the other two people's expectations are on marriage. One person could come from a broken home, and their conversation of marriage is one way, not right or wrong, just one way. And the other person may come from a family that parents are still together, dad worked, mom stood home. That's a different conversation. Mm-hmm. Now you got two people coming together with two different expectations and conversations about what marriage looks like. So who's right, who's wrong, which way, whose way, or no way? So part of that premarital counseling is asking these questions to one, understand and identify what their expectations are, conversations of marriage is. And then helping them, supporting them to find out which one are they going to choose, or is it going to be a mixture of both, or is it going to be completely none of them because both are not what they want. I think they should also have premarital business partnership counseling, right? How many partnerships could have easily been either prevented or more successful, quote unquote, if there was a pre-conversation of expectations, vision, and what it means to be in a partnership? Because everybody that comes out of one relationship has a different experience with the new relationship. Right. Some people have an arm out and say, hey, this person cheated on me. I'm not going to be cheated on again. So now I'm going to keep you at arm's length. The other person could have been in another relationship where they want to come closer to you, but you're pushing them away because you're trying to protect yourself. By the time you finally put your arm down, because you kept that person so far at bay, by the time you're ready to let that person in, that person has already felt isolated and disconnected that now they're gone. Yeah, sometimes we get confused with the word love. You know, one, that word love can be more like lust, but we call it love. That word love sometimes can be just based off of a feeling, right, of fulfillment. Oh, I love them because they fulfill me, right? I'm a 40-year-old, well, actually 42, but I'm an adult. And there was relationships in the past where, I thought I was quote unquote in love, but it wasn't love looking back, because love is a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Love is not fulfillment. We should not be looking to be fulfilled by somebody else. Nobody can fulfill you. Temporarily they may, and you love that, but the person themselves may not be who you love. It's just what the fulfillment that they bring. Not until we can be fulfilled ourselves, because then we put the wrong expectations on the other person. Well, I should be filled like this and I should be feeling like that, but because I don't feel like that today, I don't love you no more. Or you leave and now, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I love you until you were gone.
And there's a name for that, right?
Yeah.
There's called, are you guys past the honeymoon stage yet?
Yeah, puppy love.
The puppy love. So that's called, I would say that's associated to lust.
Yeah.
Is the lust gone? And the only thing that's going to carry the rest of the way is actually love. So those L's can be very confusing. And those L's can put you in a position to make the wrong decisions.
This is why marriage or partnership should be looked at as a long-term thing, a holy thing, a thing that is valued, that love is a commitment. A partnership is a commitment that no matter how we feel, let's write down why we are getting married or why we are being in partnership. Now, we're not just talking about physical. We're talking about also financial and business and everything. Partnership in general. Let's write down our vision of this relationship and why we're getting into this relationship, the expectations of this relationship, and the accountability of those in this relationship. So that when those feelings go away and we no longer feel like that during that time, we can go back to what we wrote before those feelings came and say, remember why, right? Or why are we in this relationship in the first place?
And this equation actually helps out a lot.
And these feelings will pass, right? Like you said, the looks eventually will pass.
Right.
The smart sometimes will pass. What I was attracted to you at the beginning sometimes may pass. It shouldn't, but sometimes it does. So I don't like to use the word fall in love, because what you fall in, you can fall out of. But if we grow in love, those growing in love create roots that are so deep that when the winds come and blow you left and right, you still stay planted, because a plant stays where it's at because of the roots, because of the growth. Growing in love is something that a commitment should be involved with, versus falling in love because of lust or a feeling, or, I can't see myself without them because we spend so much time together. But if they have different vision than what you want for your life, and this is where it kind of ties into, and we'll wrap it up here. What would I tell my younger self? Nothing. I would ask the younger self 2 questions. 1, what do you really want in life? 2, where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10, 25 years? Where do you want your life to look like in 25 years? Nobody really asked me those questions. I was just kind of going with the flow and figuring it out as we were going. If I had someone to sit down with me, mentor, coach, whatever you want to call it, and really start to dig in and help support, what do you really want? And we talked about the needs of life, right? The needs of a person. If I don't know what I want, I don't know what I'm looking for. If I don't know where I'm going, I'll always get there. But if I know that my destination, for example, is Vegas, okay, I know where I'm going. Now I got to figure out what is the best way to get there. I'm going to think about the weather. I'm going to think about traffic. I'm going to think about the time of day. I'm going to make sure that I have the gas or the transportation or the finances or the plane to make sure that I can get there the best way possible. Looking back at younger Daniel, at that time, I didn't know where the destination was at. I was just going with the flow. And it was fun. There are some things that I regret. And there's a lot of things that I don't regret, because it made me who I am today. And I wouldn't be where I'm at with the people that are around me if I didn't make those decisions. But looking back, that young Daniel, with the potential that was in him not realizing what was there, could have, should have, and would have, and we don't want to talk about, should not love yourself, but how many young Mikes and young Daniels are out there right now listening to this podcast?
Everybody.
That are saying, man, and even now, I'll call ourselves younger Mike and Daniel in our 40s, because one day we may be sitting down together in our 60s and saying, what would we tell our 40-ish self if we can go back in time? Right now, we're in our 40s talking about our younger self. But there's one day going to be an older self talking about our mid-young self. Mm-hmm. So what would we tell them? And they're right now listening. We talk about our audience, slow down, make better decisions. And then asking them, what is it that you really want out of life? What's important to you? What matters to you? And where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Where do you want yourself to be? Design your life. Tell me exactly what you want from life, and then re-engineer and work your way backwards. And now make those decisions based off of, is this going to get me to where I want to be at in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Is this relationship with this girl or this guy going to get me closer to my goal? Or is it a dead weight that's pulling me back? Is it a distraction? Is it just noise that is just filling a certain part in my life that, looking back, I really didn't need, because that prolonged me getting to where I want to be at? So choosing the people that are in our life, making sure that we're making better decisions, but making those decisions based off of where we want to go.
Right.
If I want to go to Las Vegas, I probably don't want to take the 10 freeway going west. That is in the wrong direction. I want to take the 10 going east, the 15 going towards Nevada. North, right? To get there. But if I'm just taking freeways to figure out and say, I'll figure it out as I get there, there's a lot of time that you're wasting. There's a lot of opportunities to end up in the wrong place, and also hurting yourself and others on the way there.
So let's be specific, so everybody could actually be aware of what we're talking about, the noise. So now let's teleport back to when we were 21, but in today's time. Mm-hmm. So what do you think are the top 3 things that are the most distracting to people today in their 20s?
Social media.
1.
You give me number 2, and I'll give you number 3.
So your friends.
Okay, so your surroundings, your friends, social media. And I would say social media, because it's distracting with everything that's been thrown at you and what you search and the algorithm and all that. But I would say 3, I would also say distractions in general.
Right.
Meaning what? Not knowing what it is that you want out of life. If you don't know what you want out of life, you will look for every way to fulfill whatever it is that you're looking for without realizing. Subconsciously, we're looking for something to fulfill this empty void. Now, and we'll land this plane and wrap it up, but me as a person of faith, and I don't like to say faith, I'm a person of God. I believe in Jesus as a son of God. I'm a Christian, born-again believer, gave my heart to the Lord, repented of my sins, and born again. I just want to be very clear, because sometimes I'll hear podcasters say faith, and I know what they're saying, but they want to be politically correct, not offend anybody. My faith shouldn't offend anyone, because if whatever they believe, that's up to them, like you said. But I want to be clear. I'm a born-again Christian, saved, set free, and delivered. I have eternal life. I believe in Jesus as a son of God. Okay. With that being said, that is the only thing that's going to fulfill the void in our life. Knowing our God-given purpose.
Right.
Bringing it right back to where we started from. Knowing that God-given purpose is going to fulfill us completing that and not looking for it in all the wrong places. I talk to people all the time who are either ex or current drug addicts. I come from a life of addiction, not smoking, drinking, or doing drugs, but other addictions, right? And we'll talk about that in the next episode, but those addictions were trying to fulfill parts of my life that only God can fill. Now, whether I was running away from him, whether I just wanted to do it my own way and not his way, again, another podcast, another episode for that. But that God emptiness was where I was looking to fulfill without knowing that was it that was going to fulfill it. So I was looking for it in women and money and power and success and fame and all these other things. But it was only God, me knowing him, accepting him, and believing in him and living a life for him was what fulfilled me. And now I can make decisions from a place of fulfillment versus a place of trying to be fulfilled.
So the reason that I had asked you, what do you think is the most distracting thing? And the reason I asked you that is because the public needs to know what is distracting. Because sometimes we don't know what our distractions are. We think that it is what it is. Social media is here. Our friends are here. It is what it is. But being aware of the distractions and what you can do in order to get some clarity and some peace in your life to make better decisions will put you in a better place to make a better decision.
Yep.
Right? So now, sometimes we talk vague, but I'm going to be very specific now. Okay, now we talked about the distractions. So what can you do to get clarity? Put your phone down. Put your phone down. Right? Now, I think that's the biggest thing that you can do is put your phone down. Because how do your friends reach you? Your phone. How does social media distract you? Your phone. If you're outside, let's just say in your backyard, in your apartment, in the little patio, if you're outside and if you're just sitting there with your own thoughts, with nothing distracting you, you have better clarity to make better decisions. So I'll give you a better remedy. Put your phone down. Go outside. Don't be in your house. Go outside. Go for a walk. Sit at a park bench. Just sit there.
Look at nature.
Look at nature.
Hear the noise around you, the cars, the birds, the trees.
And
the
you don't
wind.
need to go into anybody else because anybody else is going to be a distraction from what you're trying to accomplish.
Are you
and what you're trying
comfortable?
to accomplish is you're trying to accomplish clarity.
Are you comfortable or uncomfortable eating by yourself at a restaurant?
I've done it many times. Many times. I have actually lived by myself for many years. I don't anymore, but I've lived by myself for many years. I'm comfortable being alone. I've made peace with being alone. It took a long time because it's not easy, living with your family, right? Or let's just say I've heard in the past, like, oh, I live in the back house. That's not living alone. It's not, because you could get up and you go to the front house and there's a bunch of people there. It's you learn how to I'm gonna call it what it is. You learn how to self-soothe and deal with yourself and deal with your internal thoughts up and only to the point where you're by yourself and you're fending for yourself.
It's healthy. It's therapeutic. I think there's a time where even if you're not in a relationship and you are in a relationship, there's times where you need time to yourself.
You do.
Right? I'm very comfortable going to a restaurant by myself. Now, even in a relationship, of course, I go eat with my spouse and family and all that, but I can feel more than comfortable sitting down, ordering, eating. Sometimes it's enjoyable. I remember back in the day, I used to go to the movies by myself intentionally because there's no distractions. I can sit there, I can eat what I want, do what I want, listen and all that, and go do whatever I want to. That's therapeutic. It gives me time to disconnect, to self-soothe, to reflect, and then to create an action plan the next day. It's just very healthy. And I think there's people out there that need to take some time to themselves to be comfortable. When you're comfortable by yourself, it's going to be better for the relationship that you're in, whether it's a business relationship or a physical, marital, boyfriend-girlfriend type of relationship.
So let's actually, I know we're past our time, but let's actually touch base on what self-soothing will actually get you in a relationship. So a lot of relationships, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of relationships become codependent. Why do they become codependent? Because they're not used to nobody's used to being by yourself. So you emotionally attached yourself to this other person. Now you emotionally attach yourself to become codependent, where you expect them to bring you happiness. Incorrect. Happiness has to come from within. You make your partner happy. If they're in the same conversation, they're going to make you happy because they're happy. I'm going to make my partner happy because I'm happy. Because I was in the conversation of being comfortable with self-soothing myself, where I'm not putting the weight on my partner to bring me happiness. It's kind of like, I heard it like as form as a joke. It's like think it was Cat Williams that was talking about that. He was saying, self-esteem is called a self-esteem about yourself. What's your self-esteem? Don't put your self-esteem and how you feel about yourself on somebody else. That doesn't make any sense. Your self-esteem is how you feel about yourself, not how somebody else feels about you, right? And that's, once again, being comfortable in your skin and being comfortable with your self-esteem of how about you feel about yourself. If you're always going to put it on somebody that somebody needs to be telling you, oh, you look good or you look beautiful today. I understand, sometimes, a compliment feels nice. But if you're codependent on somebody else's making you feel good about yourself or self-soothing you or being so codependent, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because when that person, for whatever that day, they don't feel good or they're not in the conversation of making you feel good, well, then what?
So, society talks and tells us, and we'll wrap it up here, but society tells us that a relationship is 50-50, right? That's not very true, because if you're coming in at 50 and they're coming in at 50, you're expecting them to be the other 50. Half plus half equals 1. But 1 times 1 also equals 1. So there's 2 ways of seeing a relationship. Like you said, if I'm half and you're half, then we're 1. Rather than you're 1, I'm 1, and we're 1. I'm fulfilled, you're fulfilled. We're not looking for the other person to fulfill us because I'm whole, you're whole, and together we are whole.
Right.
So having those right expectations, 1 times 1 equals 1 versus half plus half equals 1.
Right.
So we'll leave them there on that cliffhanger. We'll get more into this conversation. We want to thank everybody for listening to the show today. Best version of me. Like, comment, subscribe to our channel, share. Any last thoughts?
One last thing, because I wanted to do something a little bit different this week.
Okay.
So I'm going to challenge everybody watching this podcast to do one thing. I want to challenge you guys to do something that you've been wanting to do that you haven't done because you feel uncomfortable or whatever excuse you've made to do something different out of your life. This is the week. Do something that you've been meaning to do that you haven't done to step outside of your comfort zone. Come back on this channel and make your comments on this channel and tell us what that felt like, what it did for you, and if it's going to do anything for you in the future. Step outside your comfort zone. Do something abnormal in your life.